Hello everyone, I am Lama, an architect from Damascus, once a volunteer in the Syrian Arab Red Crescent DSARC, and now a project coordinator in its water and rehabilitation department, a specialized team of more than 600. In total, the SARC depends on about 12,000 volunteers who have been the main emergency responders in the country from the very beginning of the crisis. The SARC and its main partner, the ICRC, stood shoulder to shoulder from the very beginning of the crisis and to this day in the field of water, sanitation and shelter. Now, the SARC works closely with about 15 UN agencies, INGOs and National Red Cross Red Crescent societies. In 2011, when the crisis started, the SARC resolutely built up its humanitarian response under the motto "For all people everywhere." The Water and Rehabilitation Department was created, and we worked extensively on building a capable and a professional workforce. By now, 2,000 young engineers or architects like me have gone through our training programs. This effort was driven by a very strong Syrian desire to support each other and to lead their own response. For us, it was natural and essential that we have a voice in the implementing and designing of our own programs for our own communities and people. However, crisis should be first seen through the lens of those directly affected. It's in that spirit that we joined forces with our partners such as the ICRC and combined their expertise and experience with the unique knowledge and connection that our volunteers have. The result is an incredible team where diversity becomes a strength but also keep us Syrians at the center. The generosity, solidarity and courage of SARC volunteers came at a price. However, as to this day, 65 volunteers have been killed because of the conflict. Now, as I speak to you, 13 million people are still in dire need of humanitarian assistance in Syria. Livelihoods, essential services, education have all been shattered by the fighting and still at a risk of further collapse through the protraction of the crisis. In the last decade and until today, the SARC water and rehabilitation teams have been engaged in thousands of engineering projects, hundreds of pure emergency responses, daily water trucking, drinking water supply, setup of temporary shelters, sometimes very big with waves of displaced people, up to 50,000 people at once, such as in Aleppo in 2015, or up to 100,000 people, such as at the fall of the Ghouta in 2018. As of today, our engineers are still engaged in daily drinking water trucking for 500,000 people. On the other hand, hundreds of more complex engineering projects have been executed on large urban water, sanitation or power supply systems, from the sources to the end users. Nowadays, for example, our teams are engaged in large drinking water systems, such as Khafse, designed to serve 4 million people with up to 800,000 cubic meters of treated water per day. They work on sewage lines repairs and optimization in Damascus or Aleppo suburbs and in the reconnection of essential high, medium and low voltage power lines, such as in the eastern Ghouta. Our engineers are also engaged in dozens of reconstruction projects in health structures, including COVID-19 facilities, schools, permanent shelters, industrial public bakeries, morgues, prisons, houses of returnees. All in all, at least 12 million people benefit from 300 to 400 of our projects every year. With these few words, and as I speak to you now from Damascus, all I can do is to promise that we will honor the memory of our lost friends and family members, and that we will continue the work for the sake of those millions of people who are more than ever today faced by the devastation of war.
Dear colleagues, let's talk about the nexus and why it is so important. I'm Guillaume Pirambert, a graduate from the Swiss Institute of Technology in Lausanne in environmental engineering. I am the head of the Water and Habitat Unit at the ICRC. We work in over 50 countries, carrying out every year more than 1,500 water and construction projects for around 30 million people. Urban crises are characterized by three challenges. First, scale and impact. 50 million people worldwide currently affected by armed conflict in urban areas. Additionally, of the 80 million people displaced, a large number are residing in host communities rather than camps. Second, urban services are complex. Engaging on urban services requires an understanding of interconnected they are. For instance, the operational continuity of water supply rely on electricity supply to function. It is thus not enough to focus on water supply when to ensure the delivery of water, as it creates a demand for electricity. It is therefore necessary to develop a more holistic response that factors in the interconnectedness of these services. Third, duration of the crisis. Using ICRC as an example, the average time that the ICRC has been present in its 10 largest operations is 42 years. So, unprecedented needs necessitate a rethink of collective humanitarian action. So what do we mean by the nexus? In 2017, the World Bank, UNICEF and the ICRC launched an initiative which led to the recent publication of the Joining Forces to Combat Protected Crisis report, which provides recommendations on how to better support service providers collectively. Despite much discussion of the importance of the humanitarian development nexus, there is only limited evidence of positive practice. This is partly because urban conflicts are often characterized by a highly unstable security situation, which prevents development actors from operating on the ground. Yet, humanitarian and development actors are supporting the same service providers, and this requires increased exchange and coordination between them. This should aim to leverage their respective comparative advantages for more durable solutions. To finish, I would like to mention a practical example. In Juba, South Sudan, the construction of water supply systems could not keep up with Juba's rapid growth. In 2017, only about 12 to 15% of the population were connected to a centralized water network. In 2015, the ICRC started a long-term response focusing on developing a centralized water system in Gunbo area. A challenge was the limited capacity of the local water authorities. The ICRC partnered with GIZ to leverage their extensive experience in setting up and supporting water authorities in South Sudan. The ICRC and GIZ signed a MOU which transferred the creation of an appropriate end-user entity that is capable of sustainably operating the plant system to GIZ. The Gumbo Water project is scheduled to be completed and handed over to the operator by the end of 2022. It is hoped that the present and future population will receive sufficient safe water to avoid further outbreaks of water-related diseases. Thank you and goodbye.
Hi, I'm Cecilia Hesbeck, Senior Innovation Manager at ELRA's Humanitarian Innovation Fund, the HIF. ELRA is a global charity that supports humanitarian research and innovation through our two funding programs, R2HC and the HIF. Our biggest thematic innovation portfolio is within WASH, where we funded over 50 innovation projects. The WASH Roadmap team have asked me to talk to you today about the potential of innovation to help make humanitarian WASH more effective. I want to start by picking up where Andy's presentation earlier in the session left off, by talking about the humanitarian need for innovation. Innovation can only be effective if it's driven by the needs of the sector. The new WASH gap analysis that Andy talked about helps us do this, and I want to give an example of how we're using innovation to address the gaps. One of the most frequently mentioned gaps in our report was around hygiene. Both lack of access to hygiene materials, such as soap and hand washing stations, and hygiene knowledge and behaviour ranked highly as problems that people affected by crisis would like to see solved. This is not a new gap, and we've been working with innovators to address it since 2015. But good innovation takes time, and we haven't seen any of them reach their full scaling potential yet. 5 years ago, we issued a hand washing challenge and funded 5 innovations to improve hand washing behaviour and access to hand washing materials and infrastructure. Out of those 5, 1 idea failed at the initial proof of concept stage, 1 idea stalled after the first pilot, 2 ideas had good results at pilot stage and are now undergoing external independent evaluations, and finally, 1 idea has reached the scaling stage. That's the Oxfam hand washing station, a robust, low-cost and user-friendly upgrade to the tippy tap. Oxfam delivers the station alongside its behaviour change intervention, Mum's Magic Hands, to increase hand washing rates. In response to the pandemic, HIF, in collaboration with the FCDO, has funded Oxfam to set up 2,000 stations across Cox's Bazar, DRC and Ethiopia, and Oxfam itself has produced an additional 3,000 stations that are available for other agencies to buy. A clustered randomised control trial evaluating the hand-washing station and Mum's Magic Hands from July to September 2018 found that households that had access to those two interventions were significantly more likely to use soap when hand-washing, significantly more likely to report that hand-washing with soap was important for the prevention of illness, and they were also significantly less likely to report diarrhoea in the previous 14-day period compared with the control group. So for this scale-up, London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine is evaluating the impact, and results will be ready by the end of the year. This is just one of the many innovations in the sector that has a high potential to transform how we deliver wash services. As our gap analysis shows, these new solutions really can't come fast enough. I hope I've captured your interest with this short highlight. And for more information about the wash innovations we work with, please have a look at ELRA's Wash Innovation Catalogue or email me on c.hestbeck@elra.org. Thank you very much.